Nanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Prabhupada 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 Yeah. Haribol.
Reading från Srrimad, reading från Bhagavatam, artikel til Haraldsmith og Hård Indlæg. I would feel Sri Bhagavatam, Sanskrit, Dasa, Swami. More people came, which is what Swamiji wanted. He wanted them chanting and dancing with him, and now his followers wanted that too. They wanted to be with him. It seemed that this would be the thing they would always do, go with Swamiji and sit and chant. He would always be with them chanting. Then he began the mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. They responded too low and muddled at first, but he returned it to them again, singing it right and triumphant. Again they responded, gaining hearts, ringing cartels and clapping hands. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Again he sang it alone, and they stayed hanging closely on each word, clapping, beating cymbals, and watching him looking back at them from his inner concentration, his old age wisdom, his bhakti. When I left the Swamiji, they broke loose from their surroundings and joined him as a chanting congregation. Swamiji played his small drum, holding its strap in his left hand, bracing the drum against his body, and with his right hand playing intricate Madonna rhythms. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He was going strong after half an hour, repeating the mantra, carrying them with him as interested onlookers gathered in greater numbers. A few hippies sat down on the edge of the rug, hopping in the cross-legged sitting posture, listening, clapping, kind of chanting, and the small circle of clapping and his followers grew as gradually more people joined. As always, his kirtan attracted musicians, rather than helping. I made flutes and I played musical instruments that I made. When the Swami came, I went up and started playing. He welcomed me. Whenever a new musician would join and play their first notes, he would extend his arms. It would be as though he had stepped up to the podium and was going to lead the New York Philharmonic. I mean, there was this gesture that every musician knows. You just know when someone else wants you to play with them, it feels good that you are playing with them. And this very basic kind of musician communication is there with him. And I related to it very quickly, and I was happy about it. Shri Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Reading from Srrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 3, Maharaj instructs his messengers, Text 19. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat
Pranitam.
Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam.
Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam.
Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam.
Dharmam tu sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam.
Na
Vai
vidur
Vishayo
napi
Napi
deva
Deva
Vai vidur vishayo napi deva
Navai Vidurishayo Napi Deva
Vai vidur vishayo napi deva
Navai Vidurishayo Napi Deva Na Siddha Mukhya Asura Manusya Nasiddha Mukhya Sura Manusya Nasiddhamukya sura manushya kuto vidyadhara charanadaya kuto nu vidyadhara charanadaya kuto nu vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Navai vidurishayo napi deva Nasiddhamukya sura manushya Kuto na vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Navai vidurishayo napi deva Nasiddhamukya sura manushya Kuto vidyadhara charanadaya
Dhamam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam
Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam
Navai vido vishayo napi devaha Nasadhamukya asura manushya Kuto nu vidyadhara charanantaya
Kuto nu vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Navai vidurishayo napi deva Nasiddhamukya sura manushya Kuto nu vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Navai vidurishayo napi deva Nasiddhamukya sura manushya Kuto na vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Navai vidurishayo napi deva Nasiddhamukya asura manushya Kuto nu vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam Navai vidurishayo napi deva Nasiddhamukya asura manushya Kuto nu vidyadhara charanadaya Dharmam Real religious principles Or bona fide laws of religion To but Sakshat directly Bhagavat by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Pranitam connected Na not Why indeed Vidu they know Vishaya the great rishis such as Brigu Na not Api also
Deva,
Deva,
the demigods.
the demigods.
No,
Na,
no. Siddhamukya,
Siddhamukya,
the chief leaders of Siddhaloka.
the chief leaders of Siddhaloka.
Asura,
Asura,
the demons.
the demons.
Manusha,
Manusha,
the inhabitants of Gurloka, the human beings.
the inhabitants of Bhurloka, the human beings.
Utta,
Uta,
where?
where?
Nu,
No,
indeed.
indeed.
Vidyadhara,
Vidyadhara,
the lesser demigods known as Vidyadharas.
the lesser demigods known as Vidyadharas.
Charana,
Charana,
the residents of the planets where people are by nature great musicians and singers.
the residents of the planets where people are by nature great musicians and singers. Adaya,
And so on.
and so on.
Translation. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the mode of goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles, nor are the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, the Dhyadanas and Charanas. Please repeat. Real religious principles
Real religious principles
are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Although fully situated in the mode of goodness,
Although fully situated in the mode of goodness,
even the great rishis
even the great rishis
who occupy the topmost planets
who occupy the topmost planets
cannot ascertain the real religious principles,
cannot ascertain the real religious principles,
nor can the demigods
nor can the demigods
or the leaders of Siddhaloka,
or the leaders of Siddhaloka,
to say nothing of the asuras,
to say nothing of the asuras,
ordinary human beings,
ordinary human beings,
the Yadanas and Charanas.
Vidyadharas and Charanas.
Good work by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
When challenged by the Vishnu Dutas to describe the principles of religion, the Yamadutas said, Veda Pranurito Dharma. The religious principles are the principles enacted in the Vedic literature. They did not know, however, that the Vedic literature contains ritualistic ceremonies that are not transcendental. They're meant to keep peace and order among materialistic persons in the material world. Real religious principles are Nisra Gunya, above the three modes of material nature or transcendental. The Amadutas did not know these transcendental religious principles, and therefore, when prevented from arresting Ajami, they were surprised. Materialistic persons who attach all their faith to the Vedic rituals are described in the Bhagavad Gita 2.42, wherein Krishna says, Veda Vada Vata Parta Nyanyad Astiti Vadina. The supposed followers of the Vedas say that there is nothing beyond the Vedic ceremonies. Indeed, there is a group of men in India who are very fond of the Vedic rituals, not understanding the meaning of these rituals, which are intended to elevate one gradually to the transcendental platform of knowing Krishna. Vedaishcha Sarvayaham Eva Vedya. Those who do not know this principle, but who simply attach their faith to the Vedic rituals, are called Veda Vada Vata. Herein it is stated that the real religious principle is that which is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadhaman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. One should give up all other duties and surrender unto the lotus feet of Krishna. That is the real religious principle everyone should follow. Even though one follows Vedic scriptures, one may not know this transcendental principle, but it's not known to everyone. To say nothing of human beings, even the demigods and the upper planetary systems are unaware of it. This transcendental religious principle must be understood from the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly, or from his special representative, as stated in the next verses. Shishtagamano Vishram Star Dhamyena Bhutane Swayam Rupamayam Dati Swaha Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Saparamam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Stra Shri Rupam Sarvajatam Sahagana Bhagavatam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Sarvadutam Punjana Sentam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Param Sahagana Shri Krishna Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandhu Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Satyakrishna Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwahari Sudevi Pranamami Hridevi Vanshikata Tiruveshya Kripa Sindhu Devasha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Instruction again. Real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although fully situated in the Lord of Goodness, even the great rishis who occupy the topmost planets cannot ascertain the real religious principles, nor can the demigods or the leaders of Siddhaloka, to say nothing of the asuras, ordinary human beings, the Vyagaras and Charanas. So what does the word enacted mean? Anyone know what that means? It's not a word that's often used.
Inactive play perform.
So,
If the inactive play perform play, the inactive in the window is in the window, is put into action.
so what was the second part of that?
You say you can inactive in the window, it works in the window.
Another meaning is make law. Legislation was enacted by such international covenant.
And so that an act is a law of parliament. So, so yeah, I think both of those are relevant. So it doesn't just mean spoken or written, but it means executed perfectly. And only the Supreme Personality of Godhead can execute real religious principles perfectly. Because only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is full of all knowledge, and is also aware, is full of all knowledge of everything in the universe, past, present, and future, and also knows the desires of all living entities. It's not actually possible for a mortal being to enact any principle perfectly, because there are so many contradictory factors that are going to inhibit perfect execution of something. There's all of the different living entities who, because of their situation in different planets or different cultures with different languages, then they've all got a different perception of what real means. They've all got a different perception of what law means. Just as here, in this past time, the Amazitas had a different understanding of what law meant. Their understanding was correct, because they had a role to play in relation with Yamaraj, but they didn't understand the higher law. And that's actually the case of all the entities, even ourselves. Although we're in a very extraordinary privileged position to be able to have have we've been, Srila Prabhupada says actually in the previous chapter, that we've been exalted to a very special position of understanding really the whole purpose of the Vedas, the real religious principles, of understanding the purpose of the Lord's incarnations, and an understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that Lord Chaitanya has come to give the highest knowledge and the highest understanding and the highest taste that's available anywhere in the universe. So it's we are the most fortunate, and that's all been made possible by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Chaitanya Krishna comes only once in a day of Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is the living being who has the longest life in this universe. His life, in one sense, is the length of the universe because he is the supreme engineer, he's the supreme mortal being of the universe. And his just as we understand that some living entities like insects and bacteria, their life is only like insects, their life is only one day. And then other living entities, their life is just a few seconds. So similarly, in other realms of this universe, there are living entities whose life is much longer according to our perception, and Brahma's life is the longest. So his life is, one of his days, one of Brahma's days is 4,320,000 million years long. And so it's described that every day of Brahma, Krishna appears just once on this planet, and then also shortly after Krishna appears, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. So that's how fortunate we are to have been born at that moment in Brahma's day when Krishna just appeared 5,000 years ago, and then now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appeared. But it's not that in every day of Brahma that it happens that someone like Srila Prabhupada comes necessarily to give his knowledge to everyone, to make it accessible to everyone. It's a miracle that even that knowledge, which cannot be understood by the siddhas, the vidyadas, the charanas, the demigods, Srila Prabhupada has made it understandable to persons who are like, in comparison, like virtually on the level of animals. And we can actually grasp the whole picture. So we can grasp this concept that many of the problems that are caused by different religious groups believing in different systems of ritual, and then this is due to a lack of understanding of real religious principles and the rituals. And this, in one sense, is the plan of Vedic literature to enable people to devote their lives to practicing the rituals which will gradually give them a sense of loyalty and duty and gratitude to spiritual personalities. But in Kali Yuga, which is described as the age of quarrel, then when people see differences in others, then they have a tendency to always want to fight and establish their own way as being superior. Humility is very much lacking in Kali Yuga, so rather than trying to see the good in others, people want to see themselves as superior and therefore they put others down. But someone who's a real spiritual seeker will be able to see the commonality in the different religious systems, and therefore think, oh, there must be someone who is managing all of these different systems. Let me try to inquire what's the higher principle. So the Yamajutas had a bit of that humility, although they were like, even though they recognized the Vishnudutas as being wonderful persons, but they didn't believe that they could be right, they were right. The Yamajutas had devoted their whole lives to serving Yamaraj, they were fully convinced was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And therefore, even though they recognized some good qualities in the Vishnudutas, and they were astonished by how beautiful they were and how learned they were, but still they weren't able to relinquish their ego in a certain sense, and they wanted the Vishnudutas to be chastised by their master. The Srrimad showed that it is possible to maintain loyalty to our teachers and the tradition that we've grown up in, and simultaneously have respect for others and inquire about the higher principle behind all the different traditions. So he describes here those who do not hold to this principle, who simply attach their faith to the Vedic rituals called Veda Vada Rata. That means they're attached. Rata means attachment. Vada means words or conversations. So they're attached to the words of the Vedas without really deeply trying to understand the purpose behind them. So this indicates that as long as we're still very attached to the material energy, and especially to material conceptions and our own opinion, which is like a manifestation of our false ego and our rejection. It's a manifestation of our rejection of Krishna, actually. So as long as we still have that sense of importance in relationships to others, then whatever sectarian knowledge or sectarian culture that we've become acclimatized to, then we'll that ego and that attachment which we have will empower that culture and that knowledge and elevate it to the status of the absolute truth, and that will therefore cause conflict and difficulty when we're encountering others who've become acclimatized to different culture. But it's not the actual culture itself that's the problem, but it's the It's the ego and the attachment and the impurity in our own hearts. So Srila Prabhupada gave us the knowledge, but he also gave us the process by which we can purify our hearts. It's the process of devotional service of Bhakti Yoga. And he told us that a person who's practiced in Bhakti Yoga, after long practice, then such a person their heart becomes very soft. It becomes very, very soft. And they always see the good qualities in others. And they always see Krishna acting through every person. So Srila Prabhupada was able, and Srila Prabhupada had that softness that he was able to present the Vedic knowledge with great force and conviction and assertion that this is the absolute truth. And yet at the same time he didn't offend people. People weren't offended by him, even though he was telling them that everything that they believed in was wrong. Even though he was telling them that they were really attached and that they were he used very strong words. But because he'd applied the process, the real religious principles, then his heart was so soft that persons weren't offended. So as Raghunath Raj was saying yesterday in his class about empowerment, then these two aspects of empowerment need to be executed side by side. Right? We need to have a regular study of the Shastra, of the words, the Veda, the words of the Vedas, the words of Krishna and Krishna's teachers. We need to study them and understand them. And that will take some time to understand the different systems of the Vedas, the different categorizations of knowledge. So as it's described, there's the different elements of the Vedas, like Kamakanda, Kama Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. To understand, we may be able to understand that kind of yoga ladder, but to actually recognize it when we're reading Shastra, that takes quite a lot of study to be able to recognize that when Krishna is speaking in one particular place, he's simultaneously speaking about Bhakti Yoga, but also about Jnana Yoga and Kama Yoga. In Bhagavad Gita, that's why there's so many different interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, and because Krishna is actually allowing people to understand on these different platforms simultaneously. But because persons haven't purified their hearts of ego and lust and desire for popularity and fame, then they claim that their understanding of the Gita is the real one and that others are not correct. So we'll still perhaps have a little of that tendency also. And therefore our preaching won't be so effective. Because we'll be seen as our preaching will perhaps be seen as being sectarian because we come across a little bit as proud. Whereas Srila Prabhupada can preach in an even stronger way than we can, but at the same time it's effective. So for that reason, we should it's very nice, isn't it, when lots of people start coming to Krishna consciousness, just like we've had this retreat with devotees coming from Leicester, and quite a lot of, I think it's the first retreat of that kind that we've had where like a sangha of devotees have come with very young devotees who've just been practicing Krishna consciousness for a few months. And it's like very exciting to see how people have come very, very quickly into the association with devotees and like really appreciating the deities, coming to the morning program, and listening very attentively to the classes. So that kind of, it's like a Hare Krishna explosion, like taking place there. And so it's very exciting to see that happen. And it can happen anywhere, in any place, and it is happening throughout the world now. And we can really be part of that if we study deeply the Shastra and also really work on ourselves, work on our chanting and on our sadhusanga and our service, so that we can become free from this attachment that impedes our ability to transmit knowledge to others. Because it says, even though one follows Vedic scriptures, one may not know this transcendental principle, for it is not known to everyone. And yet, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, I shall now declare unto you in fullness knowledge, both phenomenal and luminous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. So does that mean that Arjuna knew more than all of the residents of Siddhaloka, the Vidyadharas and Charanas? Does it mean that only devotees know and the devotees know everything? Is that what it means? So which is the verse that really indicates that in the Bhagavad Gita? That the devotees have the highest knowledge, the devotees are the ones who understand the real principles of the Vedas. We don't know which that verse is in the Bhagavad Gita.
There are quite a few verses. One is 1855. And in many other places, Krishna says that there's one in 10:2. Krishna says, "Na me vidu suragana prabhavam na marishiye amadihi devanam marishinam cha sarvasa." So even suragana, devtas and all do not know the origin of Krishna or his opulences, and the great precision sages and all do not know his opulences or origin or Krishna as he is. But again, in places in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, this is a very secret science, but for you, I won't keep it as a secret. Reveal everything.
What's that verse?
Rahasyam hi etit uttamam. Saivayam maya partha yogo nashta parantapa. Yogo nashta parantapa. Tapasi me sakha cheti rahasyam hi etit uttamam.
Because you might devote, I should impart this knowledge to you. Mahasya Etam knowledge is the most secret knowledge. So the Charanas and the demigods, the Vidyadharas, the Rishis, they know more than we do. They know like all of the details. But we've been given the secret. And without that secret, everything else, in one sense, is not sufficient. Because the material world is a very precarious place. Because Krishna is fulfilling the desires of all living entities since time immemorial, then he's also fulfilling the desires of the Asuras. He was on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he was fulfilling the desire of Duryodhana as well as Arjuna. And for that reason, things don't always appear rosy in the material world, even for devotees. So, and we can never know all of the reasons why Krishna does things in a particular way. But if we have the faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that he's always acting for the well-being of all living entities, then we can accept everything as being a manifestation of Krishna's love for us and of Krishna's love for all living entities. And that the purpose of all of the Vedas is just to teach us that level of faith and that level of devotion, so we can come to that point. And then nothing will remain for us to know. And we don't need to know all of the details. We just need to know that whatever happens, Krishna understands the purpose. So real religious principles are enacted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we can know some of the laws, we can know some of the detailed laws which are given to enable persons in different levels to gradually develop that faith. We can understand some of those laws. But we won't be able to understand all of the different means by which Krishna enacts those principles, because he needs to adapt them according to the desires and the levels of devotion of all of the living entities in the universe. Although it's nice for us to ask the question, why does Krishna ask in that way? It's discussed amongst ourselves. And that devotees like to do that, and there's no harm in doing that. It's nice to hear how our acharyas interpret Krishna's acts, and sometimes they see it in different ways, but their vision is not contaminated by pride in their opinion. The reason they have different opinions is because because it's not possible to know exactly why Krishna does something. So in one sense, they're thinking, maybe Krishna is doing it for this reason, for that reason, but all of the reasons that they're thinking is Krishna's doing it for, they're all in accordance with Krishna's mood of pure love for the living entities. So in that sense, all of them are the same. This Dhamam to Satcha is one verse in the second verse of the Srrimad Bhagavatam, Dhamma Kroti Tikaitavo Tripadanoni Matsaranam Satam. Completely rejecting all religious principles which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad propounds the highest truth which is understood by those sages who are fully pure in heart, Nimatsaranam Satam. So it's also have got no envy in their heart. They can understand real religious principles. They can understand the absolute truth. There's no envy. Krishna is fully independent. He can do whatever he wants at any time, because whatever he does is perfect and it's for the benefit of everyone. So such persons, they can understand the Bhagavatam. They can understand. And we are being invited into that association. We're being invited into the association of the Nimat Saranam Satam, the completely non-envious devotees. And that's a sangha of eternal bliss, constant bliss, just constantly appreciating Krishna's mercy. But there's a price to pay to attain that association. It's the price of giving up our ego, giving up our lust, giving up our self-comforting. It's a very high price to pay. But it's, I think for me it feels like very, very high. But I feel fortunate to be having some living examples of devotees who are tasting the bliss of being in that association, in that surroundings of time. So even though to me it seems impossible that I'll ever get there, but nothing else is worth trying for. But anyone else? Can anyone suggest another group, another sangha that we might want to join? The Matsa, would anyone like to join the Matsarana Town? The Association of Envious Persons. And so it's, so any criticism that might be leveled against ISKCON or against devotees for perhaps not taking into account material expectations or not, rather than get into the details of that, we can just say, well, we're just trying to stay in the association of non-envious persons. But so this is one of the most, Sripad quotes this verse hundreds of times, and from hearing him quote this many, many times in classes, he's quoting it because we don't, Srila Prabhupada had like complete faith in Shastra. That he once said, if you disagree with me, I won't be upset, but how could you possibly disagree with Shastra? How is that possible? And it's like, and that was his, that was the depth of his conviction in Shastra, because Shastra is an emanation from Krishna. And it's like, we may not even understand the Shastra, we may not understand the particular words of Krishna at that time, because they may not be meant specifically for us. But because Srila Prabhupada had total faith that Shastra is all an emanation from Krishna, and all a manifestation of Krishna's like love for the living entities, and then there's never any harm in glorifying Shastra. So we can. We don't have to be afraid that we don't understand it. Even the sinners don't understand it. They don't understand it. We don't have to be afraid. We can still glorify it as being like, as being perfect, even though we don't understand it. So I'll stop there. Sorry for going a bit long. I found it quite difficult to give a class on this verse because it's such an important verse. And I hope I said something that was worthwhile. Anyway, it was worthwhile for me. So this one we will be back today. So now we have any questions?
Bruce, thank you for your class. It's really inspiring and it's good fun there. Just wanted to ask for reading Shastra, do you have any recommendations that you could give to read every day? Because in our lives, like many people's lives are so busy, and sometimes we don't get a chance to read it every day. So what would you recommend to do that?
Well, I recommend. Thank you very much for your question. As you say, many people are very busy. I recommend that you read Bhagavad Gita every day for the rest of your life. Even when you become perhaps on a higher level of devotional service, still continue to read Bhagavad Gita. When you go to Guru Jan, who's been giving classes on Bhagavad Gita for at least 30 years, he's the senior teacher in the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education. He's been given the same class, he's been given the same course every year for about 30 years. And he's still finding it very exciting. He's still finding it very exciting. And Srila Prabhupada taught Bhagavad Gita more than any other book. So we don't need to be afraid at any time that the Bhagavad Gita will become redundant for us. As Krishna is speaking directly, it's a wonderful book. And it's beneficial for us to learn Bhagavad Gita, to learn the verses. And by repetition, reading them over and over again, then we will learn some verses. And when we've learned those verses, then Krishna can just inspire us from our heart, and he can bring out those verses for us. And it's very, very powerful. And when we remember something that Krishna, we know Krishna said this to Arjuna, and now he's saying it to me. So I would definitely recommend Bhagavad Gita. And then as we read Bhagavad Gita, then we'll find other verses quoted. And so then we can read that part that's quoted. So in one sense, the Bhagavad Gita is sufficient by itself, because Prabhupada is quoting Bhagavatam in the Gita, is quoting Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then another devotee should try to hear Bhagavatam class at least once a day. If we can't attend a class in the temple, then we should try to hear a class from somewhere in ISKCON. The rest of the world, every temple is on different time zones, so you should be able to tune into a class somewhere in the world, Srrimad Bhagavatam class, or you can listen to this class from the local temple. If it's recorded, you can listen to it later in the day. And then in that way, when you come to the temple, you've been following the classes. So that's also helpful. And then we should also read Krishna book. Srila Prabhupada wrote Krishna book in a wonderful way. He gave the story, but he also gave some philosophy, and he gave the prayers of the devotees and expanded on the prayers very nicely. And we read Krishna book over and over again, and then as we read it more and more, we can recognize certain aspects of the philosophy, and then we can compare that with our reading of Bhagavad Gita, and compare it with our reading of Bhagavatam. So, some of the senior devotees in our movement have read the Bhagavad Gita hundreds of times. That's what I suggest. And also, there are many online reading sanghas now, so if you have time to join any of them. But whatever it is, keep Bhagavad Gita going all the time. And keep that going all the time. It's got the highest knowledge in Bhagavad Gita and Prabhupada's purpose. So we will not start anything to that. Srila Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Jai Guru
Jai.
Jai.
Jai.